Riley Gaines, who is a NCAA swimmer who is on Leah Thomas's team. I think so.
No, Leah
No,
Thomas was Penn. Was it
right?
University of Pennsylvania or Penn State? One of those, I believe. But
Yeah.
this is how it all started, right? Leah Thomas definitely kicked this whole thing off.
So Riley Gaines, we'll pull up the article here, assaulted by trans activists at San Francisco State University, a university I didn't realize existed. Record-setting swimmer Riley Gaines, who, as everybody knows, is anti-men and women's sports at the collegiate level. She was an NCAA swimmer as well, correct?
Yeah, I think it's funny that you say you didn't realize San Francisco State University existed because it very much did. I'm super familiar with it.
Okay. She was from the University of Kentucky. She was forced to barricade herself in a room for 3 hours for her own safety when, super progressive and loving protesters went after her. So let's go ahead and watch it.
Yeah, you fucking transphobic bitch! I fucking see you! Trans rights are human rights! Trans rights are human rights! Trans rights are human rights! Trans rights are human rights!
So obviously that's a lot of stable individuals, Eric. Imagine thinking of this years ago, that people will be screaming obvious lies such as trans women are women. They're just not. I'm sorry. They believe that they're women. Other people can agree that they're women, but a person who's born a man is not a woman, no matter how much you believe you are. I mean, this was concrete as far as 5 years ago, and so they're chasing her down this hallway because she doesn't want other women to be, the victims of men coming into women's sports or trans women or whatever you want to call them. The facts remain the same at the end of the day, and it's just out of style now to be like pro woman. It's like the hierarchy and the intersectionality, you might say, of all of this has now like eliminated, like, being a gay man doesn't matter, being a woman doesn't matter. You have to have like at least like three comorbidities, I feel like, Eric, in order to be allowed to have an opinion, and only if it's the right opinion, because while they don't insult Caitlyn Jenner, they don't they don't amplify Caitlyn's voice at all.
Well, okay, obviously they're screaming that. Look, we see this with every single topic. They, why would they not just explain to you why you're wrong? All they're going to do is scream at you the same words over and over again. They've been programmed. They're absolute complete zombies. And the reason why this is, well, obviously we've been on the Transformer beat for a long time, since the early days of Leah Thomas, right? And there was a kind of
OG.
a running joke of how, how many weeks was Leah going to be on our show. And this kind of brings it full circle, because Leah was the one that kicked. Riley Gaines would not have 1 million Twitter followers and 5 million views or whatever it is if it weren't for Leah Thomas. And I wanted to ignore this, but because it happened in San Francisco, a place that I am very close to. I mean, I grew up in Oakland, but I went to college in San Francisco. I wouldn't call us rivals, but I went to the University of San Francisco, which is across town from San Francisco State University. And the thing about this is, I'm not going to age myself too badly, but when I was in college, this was not a thing. It did not exist. Yeah, there was gay guys, there was drag queens, there was a lot of weird stuff. There was the Folsom Street Fair, there was the Castro Street Fair. There was all sorts of crazy, unique things, but there weren't people bludgeoning you. I mean, I guess not literally, not yet, but if they had it their way, they would have. I mean, look, the news is always going to be hyperbolic, so they're going to say assaulted. I don't know. That video was very hard to decipher what happened to Riley by her account, and it was all just her running through a classroom or something. It was all really dark. So we don't know exactly what happened. But if they did have their way, they would be assaulting these people. And as we know, this two-tier justice system will let them get away with it every single time. We saw what's the kid's name? The guy, the young guy, Bo Diddle, Little Bo,
I
whatever.
don't know.
I don't know.
Diddle.
Shout out. He does interviews with Fleckers, I think, and stuff, and he got us assaulted. Look, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that these are just the most brutal attacks. Yeah, they're not. They're not life threatening by any stretch of the imagination yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
If any of this ever gets followed to its logical conclusion, there will be actual injury, and that's what they want. And they can scream about it, they can shout you down. It doesn't change the truth, but that's why they're so adamant about it. Because if they had a point to make, they would just make it and come to the table with a logical argument. But they won't. They'll just scream you down and assault you and scare you into submission. Last thing, this is why you see girls on the Whatever podcast and all these other Fresh and Fit, where they will basically admit to you that they know what a woman is, but we know that we can't say it because we will be a target of the mob. So they're kind of saying the quiet part out loud, like we know what it is, but we're not going to say it because people are going to get mad at us, rather than just saying we believe this.
I was talking about it recently with the Alex Stein stuff, how they all wanted to get their jabs in, their punches in, but they wouldn't hold back if the police weren't there. If there wasn't security here, they would have probably come and stomped her out. I'm confident in that. They think she's a bigot, a transphobe, terrible person. You can hear what they're saying is trans rights are human rights, so they must think that she's trying to take away their human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Human rights are trans rights. There's no difference. They're not having the rights taken away. But if your argument is let let us give child surgeries to underage kids without parental consent, or even with parental consent, which is weird and shouldn't happen in any instance. Just like breast implants, you can get that with parental consent. I'm pretty sure. If that's your argument and that's what a human right is, then you are wrong. And just like it's just categorically not a human right. Just like healthcare is not a human right. I'm sorry, but that's just it is. There has been a set of things that have been decided upon before that are human rights, and that's food, water, and shelter. Those are supposed to be human rights.
Well, can I just say, I mean, there, yes, you are correct, but by any stretch of the imagination, it is not a human right that you should be allowed to swim on a like man,
Oh,
woman, or otherwise. That's not a right. So look,
well,
they're on another planet.
these same people probably also believe that abortion's a human right, and they mentioned this many times. If these people, and by these people I mean these protesters, no matter their race, religion, or gender identity, if they were to form their own government and create a constitution, it would just go bankrupt. It would go bankrupt because they think everything is a gift to them, everything is deserved, and if it didn't go bankrupt, it would be 20 people at the top collecting 70% tax rates from everybody, but nobody would also want to work, so they'd have nobody to collect tax revenue from. It's almost as if communist regimes don't exist, but they want everything paid for. They want it paid for by somebody else. And Riley Gaines comes and says, let women have a chance to earn their way, to prove themselves in a sport, and that's unacceptable because they've taken the plight of these people who have convinced them that they are marginalized in some way. So no longer is it enough to be a woman. Brush those people to the sides. There's a new category of woman, and they take precedent over you. Why? It all stems from not wanting to be mean, and that's how sad it has become and how far it has fallen. The everybody's a winner of when we were kids, when everybody was like, "Oh, you all get a trophy." That has snowballed all the way down to you cannot say somebody's wrong, and when you can't say somebody's wrong, you can't debate their ideas, and therefore anything they say is a valid claim. And in this case, it's these are women, and they are allowed to, and you are taking away the right. The same way you would say if this was just like you had a daughter and she wanted to go into swimming as a sport, and they literally just said no. you can't do this because you're a girl. That's what they're saying to themselves, which doesn't make any sense. So these are real women, but you're not allowed to compete in women's sports, and it's all the other people who think that they're not women that are wrong.
Well,
not even the women. Like the women in the sport don't get a say. Like you don't get a say in your own sport. You have to get these losers to tell you what a woman is so that they can be allowed. And then what's going to be left? Nothing's going to be left. It's going to be great. If women don't want to stand up for themselves, I mean, Riley Gaines obviously is standing up for herself and other people. But en masse, if they want the Dylan Mulvaney's, then they can have the Dylan Mulvaney's.
well, I think
they're not going to be dominating men's sports.
No, obviously not. But obviously, these protesters are clearly proving her point. They're proving her point. Just like when the IRS shows up at Matt Taibbi's door, he's like, "Oh, the federal government has been weaponized," and then the IRS, it's like, "You're proving the point." And look, they're turning her into a hero. They're turning her into a martyr, right? Look, I don't even know how good Riley was. She fast? Was she winning? I don't know. She was in the top 10, top 50. I don't even know if she was good. But the fact that all she has to do is say, "Let's let women compete with women," and it turns her into this hero. And they could have just let it slide. But she's basically become a martyr for just, well, as they would call it, cis. I hate to even use the term, but they've put her up on this pedestal, and it happens the other way around too. Like, yeah, of course, we want to say like maybe all the conservatives or the common sense people shouldn't be putting Dylan Mulvaney, spreading Dylan Mulvaney stuff like wildfire. But it's too late. We're here, and this has been my. I'll finish with this. This has been my. I always knew, not to pat myself on the back, that this was going to be the issue, right? Because it's the foundation of everything. And once you manipulate those people's thoughts to the point where man, woman, child doesn't matter, everything's fair game. You can sell them 3 bridges in Brooklyn, bro. They'll buy it. This is the foundation.
Isn't it interesting how so many women's sports that otherwise don't get any attention, the only way they're getting attention is for the wrong reasons at this point. People pay attention to women's UFC, somewhat women's tennis, women's sprinting, and that sort of stuff. Gymnastics, the Olympic sports, that gets attention on its own. But when we're talking about women's swimming and women's basketball and women's soccer, the only time it gets attention is through controversies, and then they wonder why people don't just, like it for what it is. They say, pay us the same. How come people don't appreciate women's hockey? How come people don't appreciate the women's soccer team that has Megan Rapinoe and the one named non-binary girl on it? How come you don't just watch our sport? It's because you create a spectacle out of it. And now the only reason we know Riley Gaines' name is because she's had to stand up for the sport. I'm sorry. Yes. Nothing against her. The only reason we know Brittany Griner's name is because she got arrested.
Yes, and she couldn't slam dunk. But maybe we'll get...
She's no Lisa Leslie, Eric.
We'll get the...
Or Cheryl Miller. Did she even play basketball? Reggie Miller's sister?
I think she was older, so there might not even have been WNBA when she was...
A travesty.
I don't know, but maybe we'll get the sandwich making championships.
Wow, Eric. Unauthorizedopinions.com is where you can leave hate speech against Eric Butler for that comment.